Hello, everyone's Forest Focus. An absolutely embarrassing day for Nottingham Forest from top to bottom as they lose 2-0 to Everton, who are absolutely bloody awful, by the way. And then they tweet a claim of corruption against the Premier League, virtually on the final whistle. Joining me to discuss all that and quite a lot more is Mark Southerns. Mark, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right.
He's here.
a new low probably, but yeah, difficult. There's so much to unpack over the next hour or so. Yeah.
Second guest. Oh gosh, I was worried if we lost the game how Mikey Clark would be. Now we've lost the game and hit the thermonuclear button. Mikey, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm on sober April, so my moods are quite calm. To be honest, I was a little bit angry watching that, but then this tweet has just got me bewildered. But anyway, I'll hand back to you, Matt. I'm all right, thanks, mate.
If the volume is a bit dodgy, can people let me know in the chat? My wife's painted the office, so hence the no curtains. I know it's messed the settings up a bit, but you can't complain when she paints the room for you. So do drop that in the comments if any of us are quiet. Right, I'm going to kick off with the tweet because I think it all unfolds from there around what the conversation will be. So Forest on the Whistle tweeted 3 extremely poor decisions, 3 penalties not given, which I agree with, which we simply cannot accept. We warned the PGMOL that the VAR's a Luton fan before the game and they didn't change him. Our patience has been tested multiple times. And FFC will now consider its options. I would love to know what those options are. We just say we're not going to play in the Premier League because we're doing a bloody good job of that ourselves at the moment to make sure that happens next season. I just find it absolutely baffling. I know people are going to say, fair play to them, it's about time we said something, but we're a Premier League football club. To be tweeting something like that, we are going to get absolutely murdered by everyone in football. It's in my opinion, genuinely pathetic. Mikey, what's your take on it?
It's embarrassing. I can't think of another word for it. My phone went mad after the game. I was thinking because my wife was at the game and a few of my mates, I was thinking they're giving me their initial download, but it wasn't that. It was just a screen print of this tweet. And I actually initially thought it was fake. You know, one of those fake Twitter accounts that you get where people are just laughing. And then a couple of minutes later, I'm thinking, this is actually real. So I go and have a look. I'm thinking, what is the thought process behind this tweet? I mean, what are we hoping to gain from this? Like everybody, you don't have to be a Forest fan. Everybody knows, and we'll unpack it. Watching that game, we were denied at least 2 penalties. One's a stonewaller. Other one is 9 times out of 10 it should be given. 1 or 2 more. There's a bit of debate either side, but we should have had at least 1 or 2 penalties. Everybody knows that. To come out and say this on the back of it is just extraordinary. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, because you're basically inferring that the judgment of the officiating has been swayed because of the football team they support. Now, I know people joke about it in the pub, right? Everybody looks at the referees and goes, oh, God, he's from the Wirral or he's from whatever. But for a professional Premier League club to come out and actually say it, I think is astonishing. I'm still trying to process it in my head. I think what it can't take away from is that performance, and we'll go through it because there was some god-awful things in that performance. But this is not the cherry on top of the cake. This is something I've never seen before. It's quite extraordinary, really.
Yeah, it's an elevation to a new level. I mean, it is an allegation of corruption. For a football club to be making that, you're taking things to a new level, and there'll be a significant fallout from this in the days to come, I'm sure. Mark, we'll move on to the game after we get your take on it. What was your take on the tweet?
Yeah, it's just utterly ridiculous. I mean, like, what options? What do we expect to come from this? I mean, it's like it goes back to the Clattenburg appointment in the first place, as in, what was that about? What did we see the end result of that being? What gain did we possibly think that would get us? And that paves the way for that kind of tweet where we think we're entitled to, some action beyond the realms of reality. I mean, like, no, what do we intend to do? What options do we have? It's just, we have to get on with it. First and foremost, we have to do our job. We have to control the things that we control and perform on the pitch, and we didn't do that. Nuno post-match probably once again will be asked about the incidents, of course, and the tweet is basically paving the way. We've started the podcast talking about that instead of the inept performance that we saw from the team, and I'm sure the interviews will be going the same way as well. But I want to hear Nuno talk about the lack of drive and urgency in the first half. I want to hear Nuno talk about how he had a complete inability to unlock the talents of Gibbs White, who was the best player on the pitch, who was completely shackled by Garner Gay all game, and we did absolutely nothing about it. He did nothing about it. Is he going to talk about that? Because that's what I want to hear him talk about. Not the ridiculous refereeing decisions. Yes, they were there. But once again, my anger and frustration at Forest is disproportionate to the effort and urgency that I've seen on the pitch. And it's just the desire that the fans have, the anger and frustration that we feel after the game is not shown. It's not shown in the effort of the players in that first half. And I raised the flag after the Spurs game when we coasted the last half an hour and accepted defeat. Yes, they were a better side than us. Everton weren't a better side than us today. That performance against Spurs was a flag that paved the way for what we saw today. We didn't make it happen. We were just tippy-tapping the ball around, hoping for something to happen instead of getting hold of the game and driving it and make it happen. And that's what really matters today, not those decisions. They were ridiculous decisions, again, on top of more that we've had all season, but we didn't do our job. Let's talk about that.
I think the thing is as well, like Paul says here, disagreeing with you, Mark, but actually making your point, I think. We didn't perform.
Yeah.
We've created the best chances in the game. And, God, 2 games against Everton we've had, Mikey. They must be laughing to the changing rooms after that. I mean, they won't get easier games all season, will they?
No, and I thought Everton were dreadful, if I'm honest.
Awful.
Absolutely awful. So what does it say about us that, yet again, we've lost to a team that's just awful? Now, I watched Luton yesterday, and they weren't much better. So I'm thinking, do you know what? This is a wonderful opportunity for us to get something from this game today, to pull 1, maybe even 2 games clear, because that goal difference is pretty much an extra point. If you win today, you 4 points clear with that goal difference, 3-4 games to go. You're almost there, and then to perform like that was just shocking. And I can take it. Like Mark makes a great point actually. When you're playing a really good side like Tottenham, you get 10-15 minutes in the game where you're going to be on top, because unless you're Man City, you never fully have complete control of a football game. So you're going to get your 10-15 minutes. And we had them at Tottenham. And to be fair, we should have gone into the break 2-1 up. But then we sort of sat back and did nothing and just accepted defeat. And we had the same today. There were times during that game where Everton couldn't get out of the half, but yet we made nothing happen. Pickford makes a wonder save. I'm struggling to think of anything else Pickford did really, other than claim a few crosses. We let in 2 goals that were pretty much identical because our midfield doesn't close down. And yet again, we've come off the back of the team not having to be 7, 8s, 9s to beat us. Everton were poor. They were 5 and 6s. They were rubbish. You had Calvert-Lewin that's half fit. You had Decore that was almost anonymous. And yet we've lost another football game 2-0. So I'm with Mark on this 100%. I want to hear about why we didn't unlock Gibbs White. What was the thinking behind some of the substitutions? If Alanga can give you 45 minutes, why did he not start when we can get in behind, rather than bring him on when Everton have just dropped deep and there's no space in behind? I want to hear about all of this stuff. But yet again, the narrative has been changed to, okay, what excuses can we make? Well, yeah, we got absolutely screwed by the VAR. Yes, absolutely. And it's not the first time. But we're talking about different things now. And I think we should just focus on the game. But I'm really disappointed. The whole thing's just a complete blur to me now, because this tweet set me off thinking, what the hell are we doing? But it shouldn't detract from the fact that we've gone up to Liverpool today and been rubbish, god awful. And they weren't much better, if at all. Yet we've lost another game of football. And it's really disappointing, because what is it now? 4 games left, 1 point difference. You might as well toss a coin. I mean, does anybody seriously think, we've won 3 times away from home in 2 years? Does anybody seriously think we're going to go away to Burnley and Sheffield United playing like that and not closing down and get anything from the game? Because I'm having serious worries, if I'm honest, Matt. I'm really worried about this team.
We'll come back to the big picture at the end. We'll probably just do the game. We might as well do it chronologically, I think. Annie, thank you very much for becoming a member. Appreciate the support join the circle of misery, and we'll try and uplift everyone by the end. But I think we'll be battling today. I mean, I don't think we can complain particularly about the team selection, Mark. It was basically the team we wanted. I wouldn't have picked Niakate, but fair enough. We picked a progressive team. But then we proceeded to sit incredibly deep against a team that's not going to run in behind us. They've got zero pace. I mean, I don't know what was the setup. What was the plan in the first half, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I said in the chat, we were playing like we had the comfort of mid-table behind us. Like we were just, there was no drive. No one wanted to take control of the game. When we had the ball, we were trying to tap it around the midfield without actually anyone making any kind of run into space or anyone trying anything ambitious with passing. The only player who showed any drive yet again was Nico Williams. Now, I want to make a point here. Nico Williams has won what, player of the month, 2 months running? Is that right? I think he has.
Yeah.
Right. He hasn't got a goal and assist in that time. The only reason he's been voted player of the month 2 months running is because he's the only player who consistently shows effort, drive, work rate. That's what's won him player of the month for the last 2 times. That's the bloody problem, because we don't have any other player who consistently shows that level of effort. And once again today, you saw it. I mean, Danilo first half was absolutely abject. And I'm sorry, but that first goal, you look at the triangle of Gibbs, White, Dominguez and Danilo, the effort that they showed to close the man down, to track the movement of the Everton's players in the first place. And then the second goal, Danilo's at fault, really, because he made a half-hearted attempt at blocking the shot. I mean, it was crying out for me for Gibbs White to drop deeper, so he got out of the shackles of Garner Gay and got into a deeper position where he could affect play, and then we put Reina in the 10. That's what we should have done. Why he took Reina off, I don't know. He didn't have a good game either, but apart from Nico, nobody did. But for me, it was about getting Gibbs White in the game, getting him on the ball, because he wasn't. Decore was doubling up on him, and we just weren't getting him ball in space. Every time he had the ball, he was having back to goal, 3 or 4 players tracking him. They just shut him out the game completely. When Deitch did that, Nuno's got to react. Nuno's got to go, right, he's the best player on the field. He's the one who can create something. He's not getting the ball in the 10 position. Let's get him deeper. Put Reina in the 10, who he was presumably brought in to, be an option in the 10. That's his natural position. But he didn't do it with the change. I just don't understand. Mikey's dead right. Elanga, in that first half, Nico got behind them. If that was Elanga, you'd think we'd have got more end product from that. So start him if he's fit enough to play an hour. So I don't think Nuno's blameless again. I'm sorry. I think the team selection was good, but the way in which he allowed the team to just drift into this inept kind of casual approach to the game in the first half was unforgivable. And then he made the wrong change for me.
I'd got Elanga on young personally and a lot earlier. Hudson-Odoi had him, giving him problems. The pace for Elanga, I think, would have given him even more problems. Before we talk about the penalties, then we'll do that after the goal, the 2 first half ones. Mark touched on the goal there, Mikey. Just an absolute mess, I thought. Like, the ball bounces, Gibbs White's closest to him, and he doesn't track him. Danilo doesn't get out to him. I think Sells, he's a bit, flat-footed. So he's under the microscope. What was your read on it all?
I was saying to somebody the other day that the thing with Forest is we always make 1 or 2 catastrophic errors per game, and it usually leads to a goal. And I think this was a combination of errors from numerous people. You're right, Matt. Gibbs White doesn't run back, and I saw Callum Hudson-Odoi do it a minute before that, so I was shouting at the TV and I saw it again. But Danilo needs to track him, and then Matt Sells is slightly unsighted, but it's like I put in the chat. You shouldn't really get beaten from that distance unless it's an absolute thunderbolt in the top corner. It was a P-roller. He almost missed it, and it squirmed into the bottom corner. But it was just a disaster from the start, really. Lack of closing down, and then I know we'll go on to the second goal, but it was just, again, same. Just runs through the middle. Nobody closes him down, bangs it in the corner. I mean, that's not skill. I watched the game with my dad, and I was saying to him, even when we were 1-0 down, I was saying, we have better players than these. We just need to up the tempo. We need to create some overlaps, be clever with our ball manipulation, and we will create chances, which, obviously never happened. But it was obviously we had the better caliber player. But what they had in abundance that we didn't was the spirit and the drive and the desire to close down. And it was seen within these 2 goals. If that's Forest, we don't get the shot off. And if we do, it's blocked. And that is just genuinely the difference. There's not a lack of talent in this Forest squad. But if they do their jobs today, we get a 0-0. Or we probably get a 1-0 or 2-0 if the VAR does their jobs as well. So Yet again, we've lost the game because of things completely in our control, like closing down. And there are question marks over the keeper, but I think I'm with Mark. I think Danilo has got to be better. I think he was better in the second half overall, but then he had to be. But the goals again when they're playing back. What does Gary Birtle say? Avoidable goals. Yeah, there's another 2. So it's just really, really worrying now. Games are running out, and we're in the mire.
The thing is, Mikey, when you go to Goodison Park, you've got to fight for your right to show your quality. Even Man City have to go there and match them for work rate and effort before their talent comes to the fore, and we didn't do it.
No.
We just didn't. We weren't anywhere near their level of work rate in terms of closing down, getting into duels until maybe midway through the second half when it was far too late. Finally, we started putting some tackles in and getting pressure on the ball. Before that, we were just jogging from player to player. And if you look at that first goal, that epitomises it.
I think so. The second half was the performance the first half should have been to an extent in terms of, just exerting some kind of intensity and control. Right, let's talk about the penalties because it was the other pivotal factor in the game. We can't ignore how important they were. The first one, Mikey, was probably, to me, the least clear of the 3, the tap on Rayner's ankle. What was your take on it?
It was, but if people cast their mind back to last season when we played Everton and John Joe Shelby whacking Ashley Young, I think it was in the back of his foot, exactly the same. And that was given. So, you see them given. I thought, when it first happened, maybe not. And is there enough to overturn it? I don't know. It was a bit soft. But then you look at the others, and honestly, my God, and you could tell, you can tell by players' reactions and people's reactions because they're human beings. And you look at the sheepishness of Ashley Young for the second and the third one. He knew. You watch it again, everybody. You look at his face. He knew he'd done something wrong there. And to get away with it is just astonishing. So even if you don't get the first one, and I know you judge each individual action on its merits, but how many times does he have to foul somebody in the box for us to get a penalty? Was it 3-4 times? What does he have to do? Punch someone? Do they give it then? I mean, honestly, let's not detract from the fact that we were rubbish and probably might have missed it anyway, but they've got to get that right. That is incompetence from their point. As much as we didn't do our jobs on the pitch, they need to do their jobs in the video office and on the pitch when you're a referee. So first one, 50-50, I can see why it isn't given. The second and the third, I think, are stonewallers, if I'm honest.
Yeah, the first one I think is a penalty, but you can see sometimes, okay, that's not given. The second one, Mark, it's like when a batsman nicks off the wicket keeper and they turn around. They know what they've done, and Young knew what he'd done there, and that was. Well, I was going to say it was the worst of 3. It was certainly the third one was bad as well, but how that one wasn't given, because I'm going to reference that Bournemouth one against Man U, which was very similar, and that was given. It just shows the inconsistency. Sorry, you take it away.
Yeah, well, we saw with the Grealish handball in the semi-final, didn't we? That was a very strange decision, and often you get one in a match early in the weekend, and then lo and behold, the threshold is lowered again, and it's like nobody knows what handball is. We've said it all season. I don't, you can say it's just a decision gone against us and maybe there is something more at play. It's a penalty for me. It would have been given, earlier in the season. I don't know why all of a sudden that's not a penalty. I don't think that's a natural position, and he's moved his arm towards the ball. So he knows it wasn't given. Again, the level of check that was done, I didn't see enough really to satisfy me that they had a good look at that.
Yeah.
And the one second half, the one where Young doesn't get the ball and goes through Hudson-Odoi, that's a penalty. There's no question we were on the wrong side of decisions again today. But I don't see any point in our energies being spent on those decisions when there's nothing we can do that will influence that now, post-match or going forward. Legitimately, our fan base can do nothing about it. Our officials, our backroom staff can do nothing about it as far as I can tell. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are options, but I just don't see what they are. So I don't want the fan base to dwell on that, or Nuno or the team to dwell on that, because if that's what they're doing, that's detracting them from the thing that we can control, which is trying to get better performances out of the players on the pitch. We can't control the officials, regardless of what the Clattenburg move was meant to do. Was that some kind of statement that we could control something? I don't know, but that, as I said, paved the way for that tweet today, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to hear the audio of the VAR, because
Yeah.
even if Atwell's, let's say, all right, Atwell's a Luton fan. I mean, I just think he's absolutely awful as a ref. I think he's the most up there with the most incompetent in the league. But okay, he's a Luton fan. There's other people in that VAR studio who could say, well, actually, I think they need to have a look at that. But I don't know. I just think it's an absolute joke, that one. The third one, Mikey, is that as bad? I mean, I put out a tweet of that famous Fenerbahce v Galatasaray youth game where they're absolutely murdering each other. If people have seen that one going around, to say this is what we need to do to get a penalty. But that one's a definite penalty as well, isn't it?
I've lost count of them. Which one's the third one on Hudson-Odoi?
The one where Hudson-Odoi's in behind and Young, they say he got the ball, and he clearly went through the back of Hudson-Odoi, and I still don't think he got the ball anyway.
So many of them. You lose track. 5 seconds after that happened, Lindsay, wife who's at the game, said, I was right in line with that. That's a penalty. And I said, let me just see it again. And I just replied and went, yep, penalty, not given. So, and it is, and you look at it, and I think one of the Sky commentators said something really interesting as well, which got me thinking. I think he said, it might have been Carragher afterwards, said, if the referee had said Ashley Young got the ball, then the VAR should have looked at it and said, well, actually, he didn't get the ball. So your initial view of that is incorrect. Therefore, do you want to look at it? If the referee would have said, actually, it's just a coming together, then I could understand the VAR going, yeah, probably is. But the ref thought he got the ball. He didn't get the ball. It took me one look at it, video evidence, 2 seconds. He didn't get the ball. So why can't people that are being paid a lot of money and are supposed to be professionals look and said, actually, I know you said he got the ball, mate. He didn't. Come and have a look at it. Because then the ref can have a look and say, yeah, but it's still a bit of a coming together. I'm not going to give it. That's fine. But to just not look at it again, it's bewildering. So I get the anger, I get the frustration, and I get the fact that it seems to happen to Forest over and over again. And I absolutely get that. But Mark's right. What can we do about it? Like, what are these options? And also, Matt, you were talking about, does it then galvanise the players? Is there a sense of injustice? Well, if there is, where is it? Where is it in their closing down? Where is it in their sprinting? I wrote down, I've left my pad downstairs, but I wrote down, I was watching people not sprinting back and just jogging back. So if there is this sense of injustice that we're getting crap decisions and they want to show it on the pitch and they want to, translate their frustration into, extra effort, where was it? Because I didn't see it. So all I saw is not doing some of the basics again and losing another football game. So, yes, it was a penalty. Yes, we've been done again, but they're not doing the basics, Matt. So that's why they're losing. They're losing games. Yeah,
you either see it as an injustice or you see it as an excuse, and it looks to me like they're seeing it as an excuse too often. I mean, Mikey's right. There was an instant where Hudson-Odoi was jogging back and then stood there and then didn't do anything to get near Harrison, didn't mark any Swan, didn't barely occupy the space. It just happened time and again. So bitterly disappointing. There was a fourth one, Mark, which I didn't think was a penalty, where Wood tried an overhead kick, but we can talk about that. And just in general, any further thoughts on the penalties before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, that was the lesser of them, wasn't it? I don't think too much can be made of that. Just going back to what Mikey was saying there, Tarkowski was interviewed post-match and he said, yeah, it's an important result with all the teams down there battling for their lives. Do you see that? Do you see us battling for our lives? Do you think that performance was us battling for our lives? Because that's the real point. You look at it, Danilo put in one tackle, Dominguez didn't put any in. Our midfield only won one tackle. That was from Gibbs White. They won 10. So Garner Gay won 5 of his 6 tackles. Decore won both of his tackles. The stats don't lie. That's what we saw. Like all the effort, all the duels, all the blood and thunder was coming from Everton, and we didn't match them. And like I said earlier, you have to match them before you can bring your quality to bear, and we didn't do that. And it's just so disappointing. And unfortunately, a lot of the time and energy post match will be spent on the referee instead.
Also, thank you to William Hutton for becoming a channel member. I'm going to do my usual Monday plug for the Trent navigation as well. I've made this joke every time, but there's no other joke to make. Double stamps on your beer. Wash down, drown your sorrows. That's the place to be tomorrow. The Trent Navigation. They do give us tremendous support, and I am very grateful for it. So if you are going to a Forest game in the Premier League or the Championship, whichever league you're in, do go to the Trent Navigation beforehand or after. It is the best football pub in Nottingham. Before we get to the second goal, Mikey, I know the game becomes a bit of a blur, but Gibbs White had a really good chance where he missed the target. Again, that probably needs to go in. I thought it typified Morgan's performance. I said before the game, if he plays well, we win. And I know it's oversimplifying it, but if he probably did play well, I think we might have won that game. And I can't think of too many worse games he's had in a Forest shirt. Is that being harsh?
No, it's not being harsh, but I think it goes back to Mark's point. I think Mark's absolutely spot on. The only time we dropped him deeper, we were 2-0 down and it was 10 minutes to go and it was game over. Like it was too late. He needed to get on the ball and orchestrate, and we have plenty of weapons further forward in the pitch that could have made that happen. But the manager felt fit not to change it. So he wasn't getting any space. He wasn't, the only half yard he did get, he was probably so knackered, he put it wide. It was a bad miss, to be honest with you. But it did sort of typify his performance and Forest performance as a whole. But again, things that things that the manager and the players who are representing us as fans can control, they didn't control well enough. They didn't control their urgency and aggression. They didn't control. Certainly, the manager didn't control the way he sets the team up and tweaks it based on what he sees on the pitch. That kind of wasn't good enough. But yeah, Morgan just didn't get into the game. But like I said, I'm with Mark. There are plenty of ways to make somebody tick. Like if this was, I don't know, pick any team. Pick I don't know, the Tottenham midfield, for example, really struggled against us in the last game. Their manager knew they were struggling, tweaked it straight away. There you go, done. Now, I'm not saying we have a Bentancur on the bench or anything else, but we do have some options, and we do have some options to allow us to do that, to move our best player 10, 15 yards deeper so he can get on the ball and therefore get his head up, which in theory would push Everton back a little bit, and therefore give us more of the ball. So again, we just didn't do it, didn't react, too late, 2-0 down, and that second goal was just almost a carbon copy of the first. The man ran through, barely challenged, just whacked it in the corner. It was a much better finish than the first one, but that just kind of sums up the game. It was just really poor. And you're looking for positives, aren't you? You're thinking, what can you take into the next game? And we all know what the next game is, my God. So what can you take into the next game? What did we see today that we think, if we do a bit more of that, we might be all right? Or was there any little patterns of play? Or did we come up with some nice set-piece routines? Or did anybody excel when they hadn't excelled? I can't take anything. I just thought it was poor all around. It was an abject performance. And Mark's right again. When you get the opposition player come out and say, battling for our lives, that is a phrase that I would not use with this team today. Not a chance. And do you know what? The Man City game is just a freak next week. We've got 3 games to save our season, and we're going to need to win at least one of them. So we're going to have to show different qualities than what we showed today. And I'm the way I'm feeling right now, I don't know whether they've got it in them, if I'm honest.
Yeah, too much pedestrian passing, too many flicks. I know we could have moved Gibbs White deeper, but I would just send him into traffic and he would have just done more flicks and tricks. I don't know. I just thought it wasn't very, very good in general. Do us a favour, 675 people with us. If you haven't already, as Tony said, do hit like. It really helps us out. And he also pointed out there are cobs on the bar. I don't know if you go down. Right, second goal, Mark. Sort of a carbon copy of the first. What was your take on it?
Yeah, it just the danger. We're too naive. We're not getting to the danger. I mean, we're in the Premier League now, where players, even of someone like McNeil, who's hardly an elite Premier League player, they can score that type of goal. He scored he scored the winner at the City Ground. We know what he's capable of. He's got a threat from range, and Danilo is jogging back with Decore. Decore plays a short pass back to McNeil, and Danilo's attempt to close the shot down, it was lame. But I just don't know what to say about it, really. I just think that we need to be showing more effort and putting more on the line, given the situation we're in. I expect to see more from our midfield tracking back. I think defensively, if you're going to look for a positive, we cope with set plays okay. They didn't, the quality wasn't there from Everton, so maybe that's more about them. Yeah, exactly. So we did okay from set pieces. And I don't think Niakate and Murillo had poor games. They were, along with Nico, they were probably our best performers. They were steady, didn't really, Everton didn't have a lot, though, to threaten us with. So maybe it says more about Everton than us. But the midfield, the central midfield, I mean, we talk a lot about Yates's lack of quality on the ball, but there's no question that we lost his effort and drive. At least he would have got amongst them. He got a yellow card in about 5 minutes, didn't he? We could have done with that in the first half, just someone to get amongst them and put them under some degree of pressure. We did it eventually, but it took too long to get to that point. And that's it for me. It's like, for me, Nuno was too passive in making changes and tweaks to the team to get more out of them. And yes, you can say, well, Gibbs White dropping deep might not work, but try something. Do something. You've got a talent in Gibbs White. You've got Gio Reyna, who is a much sought after talent in European football not so long ago, who just got player of the tournament at an international tournament. We have got talent there, more so than Everton, but we didn't harness it. We didn't unlock it and make it be a factor in the game. That's got to be on Nuno. And that's what I want to hear him being asked about.
Can I go around this revolving? Go on, I'll make my point after Mikey.
Sorry. No, all I was going to say is, I was thinking before the game when I looked at the lineups, and I always do this, think about which players from their starting 11 would you want at Forest? And I picked 3. So Calvert-Lewin when he's fit, but he wasn't fit today, Brathwaite and the goalkeeper. So what I saw on the pitch kind of gave me that view of that, 8 of our 11 players, if you're making a first choice 11, would come from Forest. So Mark's right, we have the talent, we have the capability, but what we didn't have was the application of that talent and the will to fight and to scrap with all these players, which I naively looked at and said they wouldn't get in Forest team. Well, they probably would if they're going to put tackles in and throw the bodies on the floor and fight and scrap, as they said after the game. And we didn't do that. So you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not going to do the basics, you're going to struggle. So that's what I mean. If we were a team that just didn't have that talent, then I could kind of accept it. But there are players, certainly in the attacking third of our team, that would be sought after in the top half of the league. We're just not seeing it. And it's just really frustrating, because if this was middle of the season, I'd still be saying this. But the fact is, we've got a few weeks left and we're a point outside the drop zone. And
I mean, Everton did the basics.
Terrifying.
They did the basics. They got 6s and 7s. They didn't play well. They hardly put a sustained period of pressure together. They didn't pass the ball. They didn't create many chances. Their XG shows that. But that was enough to beat us. And not for the first time. A team hasn't had to play well to beat us. But I don't think there's been a worse example of it than today.
Of course, Pickford finally grows arms to make a save. That's when we need him to let one in. But I was going to say as well, we just come back to the same conversations. I mean, we do a lot of these a week, and it's not our fault. Ryan Yates might have done this. Well, then Dominguez comes in, doesn't take his chance. We change centre halves all the time, and they were okay today, but they haven't solved any debate. We just have the same problems time and again. The only one that we stood up to today, ironically, was one where I thought if we do it, we'll probably be all right with set pieces. Because I thought, Everton have no threat from open play. And to an extent, they didn't. I mean, those goals shouldn't go in, but it's just so depressing. Time and again. Let's talk about the big picture then for the last 10 minutes about, are we going to stay up? I mean, I actually think we will, but only because Luton are just so bad. I'm not convinced Luton will win another game all season, but I'm not convinced we will either. So, yeah, I do think we'll stay up and we'll be incredibly lucky. And then God knows what happens next season if we do. But that's a conversation for another day. Mikey, what about you?
Oh, dear. I knew you were going to ask me first. The way I'm feeling right now, I'm really nervous about it because, like I said, I watched Luton yesterday and what they lack in quality, and they do lack in quality, they're not very good at all. There's no lack of heart or spirit there. I think you might be right, Matt. I think they might struggle to win another game, but they might not have to. 2 draws might be enough, the way we're playing. So I think it's probably a toss of a coin. I'm still hopeful that I think you can. Man City, I think is, I don't know, it's just a horrible game to have. But we've got the bottom 2 away from home. I think we're going to have to win one of them. And if we win one of them, we'll stay up. But from what you see today, would I put any money on it? Probably not. So I think, without saying I think we'll go down, I think we're in major trouble. And we need to see a much more determined, aggressive football team in the remaining month of the season, because that's what you'll get with our rivals, even though they lack quality. And Mark again nailed it for me. If we do that, our quality will eventually, in 100 minutes of a football game, shine through, and we might nick a game 1-0, and that's all it's going to take. Rich, our Tottenham mate, said to me today, Matt, a team's going to stay up and not even get to 30 points this season. And I was like, really? And I looked and I thought, God, you might be right. Like, how bad is this league when we could like stay up on 29 points? Because they used to say, 38, something like that, didn't they? 36, 38. We could actually stay up, and you might be right, like, we could stay up on like 29 or something. And then the whole conversation around next season comes into play. But we've just got to be better than Luton. But from what I saw today, I'm not sure we are. So I'm nervous. I'm probably teetering on the side of we're in major trouble.
I mean, I still think we're better than Luton based on what I saw today, because I watched Luton yesterday and I just think they're terrible. I think 4 points will save us. It's just a shootout between us and, I was going to say Luton. People are worried about Burnley. I'm not yet. They've got 3 awful games.
Their fixtures are awful.
Yeah, I'll worry if they get a win in the next 3. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I think the fact that we got Everton out of trouble today, they go to Luton, don't they? Game after next. That's the problem. So because Everton now might feel safe, there's less jeopardy in that game, and then Luton could turn them over, because I didn't see much from Everton here in terms of quality. So that would be a game that Luton could definitely win. So that's the worry now. If we'd have got a draw today, it would have meant that Everton would have gone to Kenilworth Road having to perform and come away with something. Whereas now they probably feel that they can go there, get a draw, and that'll be enough. And then going there for a draw might be dangerous, and Luton could turn them over. So plus, Everton will go there with not a lot of quality, fight and spirit, and it'll be a game of attrition probably against Luton, and Luton could come out on top in that. So that's what I'm worried about. We've got to go to Sheffield United, and obviously we've got better players than them, and we've got to make that quality count. But we're only going to do that by matching them for effort. And that's what we didn't show today. Just on the Yates-Dominguez thing, yeah, Dominguez playing was the right decision, but you still got to go in tactically, and you've got to get hold of Danilo and Dominguez and say, look, it's going to be a battle in there. You've got to match them. You know what to expect at Goodison Park. You know what to expect from Gana, Gay and Decore. But we didn't seem to have that brief, did we? That's what frustrates me. It's not the team selection. I didn't necessarily want Yates in the team, but what I did want to show is our team matching them for effort, which is what is the bare minimum when you go to Goodison Park.
Can I say as well, Matt, you just reminded me of something, Mark. So on Sky, they were talking about the cauldron. They use that phrase, cauldron of noise at Goodison. Maybe my TV's defaulted on the sound, but I didn't hear that. And after we got past the first 10 minutes, it was silence, and they were backing off in their half. And this is where I thought, actually, we can really take control of this game now with slick, swift passing, lots of aggression, force them back. You could hear the murmuring and the moaning from the crowd getting louder and louder and louder. And what we did instead was we almost thought, oh, that's it now then. We've got over this cauldron of noise and this sweeping. We can just tap it around and just do nothing and jog around. And that's what I thought happened in the first half. That team was there, and that crowd was there to be taken and to be turned. And we didn't do it because we were too passive yet again. How many times did we come on here and say, oh, if we'd have just upped it, They were there. They were there to be taken, and we didn't do it, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I think so. Right, just check the Forest Twitter. No declaration of war, no tanks driving to Stockley Park yet, but we'll keep you posted on that live 24-hour news feed on Sky probably, just to see what happens. Right, I think we'll leave it there. No final thoughts. We've all said our piece. We're back tomorrow, 9:45 a.m. Greg's on. If anyone can find positives, then he's the man.
Oh
Greg,
God,
surely not.
We'll see. He was there. Greg, Prutz, and Temps. We'll talk about that and then assess, God knows what, how we're going to stay up. Right, great to have 800 people with us, joining us in the misery. Or maybe I'll feel better tomorrow. There's a few people in the comments saying, we played better than the results and we created the chances and we were shafted by VAR. I mean, part of that's true, and maybe I'll feel better tomorrow. Mikey Clark, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe I will as well. That's the thing it's like when you interview managers 10 minutes after a game, the emotion's still running high.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you get that random tweet and you're thinking, what multi-universe are we in here? All I will say is safe journey back to, although I've got a few friends and obviously my wife went today, so safe journey back, and sorry about the result, but we've got 4 games left to save ourselves, but we need to have a bit of a kick up the arse, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, Mark, that we do these things straight after the final whistle when emotions are running high, but they were going to be today, weren't they, I think?
Yeah, and it's like I said, the anger and frustration we feel isn't always borne out by what we see, is it, on the pitch? That's what's frustrating for us. But yeah, it's a very difficult time to be a Forest fan, not helped by obviously our social media team who had that kind of debacle in the week with the season tickets and then matched it with the tweet today. So frustrating time to be a Forest fan, but just like Forest, we don't really have the option, do we? We stick with it and we try and find some positives and we look forward.
Yeah, I said this in the week. I can't believe any of our social media team voluntarily crafted that tweet, because there's good people there and there's smart people there.
Yeah. And
that is not smart, in my opinion. I know people in the comments are loving it, and I've seen a few prominent people on Twitter saying, yeah, great, what else can we do? This is the Premier League, and Scott says in the comment the tweet was warranted. I don't think it does anyone any good at all, Scott. It doesn't change anything at all. I think it just makes us look bloody stupid. Right, we'll leave it there. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone. God, we shall see you soon.